I'd call my little talk education of an illiterate in green and what it meant. Enterprise was an organization that was set up by Jim Rouse, and its purpose was affordable housing for really some of the poorest people in the country. And it set up one of the initial low-cost rehabilitation groups, because every penny you spent extra meant you couldn't reach down and really serve really low-income people. So I started out life, I think Jim Rouse was in this as well, as saying green was expensive. That was fancy. That's not what we did. There was no connection between that world and affordable housing. And I happened to be on another very interesting advisory board that Jonathan was also on, and he gave the presentation that really opened my mind as CEO of Enterprise in those days, to not only begin to transform Enterprise, but to look and see if we couldn't transform the entire affordable housing field. And so this is that story. And of course, Jonathan started with the cheapest, most affordable, and most sustainable home in the world. And what is that? It's an igloo, the greenest house. That was his first thing, was an igloo. Think about that. And then you went on to the Renaissance. You went through all of this journey, and it wasn't cost and advantage, because all CEOs are skeptical and wonder whether you really will ever get that kind of a trade-off advantage. It was really looking at this from a wholly different perspective of saying, if you look at a wonderful, Renaissance city, it was about the buildings in relation to each other. It was about mixed income. It was about transportation. It was about all the cost of life and a community that made sense and how you put it together. And so you started to think from straight energy costs to transportation costs to where affordable housing is, and to really sort of thinking. And at this moment, my thoughts were, we can do this. We can do this. Not only can we begin to look into how green might work, look at the technology, look at the transformation in the green world, but if it's right or close, it's something that we ought to do as Enterprise, and we ought to be doing as an entire field. And so my first point for you is the education of the CEO is an important part, and it will appear differently to different people. So it could be, the sheer thought of an igloo and a Renaissance city versus straight dollars and cents. People come by it from all different means. That started us into a review, and we got some of the experts, Greg Katz, which was out of the energy department, to look and say, who was Anthony saying? So we got our experts to say, yeah, these costs are sustainable. Yes, you can do this. And then we said, well, why don't we put our experts in low-cost housing techniques together with a really credible environmental firm, who we would need, to look at a national set of standards. And this is right as the US GBC had not yet come out with its LEED, but we worked with them to make sure what we were going to do was going to be compatible with what LEED had for residential. And we really put them together, and we went to Ashok, and we went through Jonathan, who sits on NRDC, and there was this intense period of working out frameworks for what was lowest cost and what was also environmentally acceptable, and that NRDC would put its name on. And then we said, but to do this, it's got to be big and bold. We really got to do something of some size and significance to be able to shake loose money from foundations, from financing that we will really need to carry it out and to capture what's been going on in the country away from Washington and its policy during all of these years. And so we said, well, we need every organization to get involved one way or another. And so we went to the AIA, and the green building part of the AIA is the smallest part of the AIA, but we got them to sign off because they didn't have to put any skin in the game. They were going to get glory out of it. Or the APA, 19 different partners, down to Citibank, to financiers who wanted to be green. And we looked at the way that we did our business through tax credits and grants and through other lending, and said, let's do $500 million. Let's start in 2004. Let's start with $500 million, a national framework, which would be the green communities criteria, which would be in the same mold as the Green Building Council was going for LEED, et cetera, so they'd be compatible with each other as far as systems. Let's put it out there. Let's aim for $500 million, 5,000 units, and let's do it across the country and see what comes back. And let's go out and raise money.